Good morning and welcome to the Garland RedCup Variety Podcast. Brought to you by 22 Design Studios. I am Logan Lanier and that is Mr. Paul Garwood. Good morning,
Mr. Good morning, everyone.
Yes, sir. We are live on Facebook and YouTube and have pages on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our website is the RedCupPodcast.com. And we do not own any rights to any music played. The Garland RedCup Variety Podcast, where there is always something good in the Red Cup.
Yes, sir, Brother Logan. Let me know. Tell me what's good in the Red Cup today.
Well, in the Red Cup today, Mr. Garwood, we have a very, very special show. It's the anchor to our celebration of Black History Month.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about historical blacks in the sports from the Detroit metropolitan area, and we have some very special guests coming on here in a few minutes. Four dynamic young men who will be sharing their stories and giving us a little insight of what they went through as they were coming up through the ranks. But first, we want to talk about a little history that we know about, and we can't. It's so many historical black men that was involved in sports in our area, and it's a shame you can't get to them all. But we're gonna talk about some of them right now for the few minutes here. And I got one, and I got to put this one first because this gentleman's from Highland Park, Michigan.
HP, yes.
City of trees.
Yes,
well,
yes, indeed.
Most of the trees are torn down, but it was city of trees back then. Bobby Joe Hill.
Okay, yes.
And if you saw the movie, now this escaped me. I don't want to say I'm having a senior moment because I am not that old. Glory Road.
Western, yep.
Yep, Glory Road, okay.
Glory Road.
Texas Western, now Texas El Paso. He was part of the all-black starting five, and they won the NCAA championship in 1966. But Bobby Joe Hill was from Highland Park, Michigan, and was part of that significant historical team that won the NCAA championship in 1966.
With Bobby Joe Hill, I always remember the highlight when he stole the ball and went in with that left hand layup. I think he stole the ball 2 or 3 times and went in for that left hand layup. And they played against Kentucky. Okay, Texas Western played against Kentucky, and one of the players on Kentucky was Pat Riley. And Pat, Adolph Rupp in Kentucky, they didn't have any black ball players at the time, as everybody knows with Glory Road. But Pat Riley took a lifelong lesson from that game of getting beat by that all 5 black starting lineup.
Yeah.
All salute to Bobby Joe Hill, Highland Park, one of Highland Park's finals.
And the little point guard, real quick, on Kentucky was Louis Dampier.
Louis Dampier, yes.
And he was touted as everything.
Yes.
And I'll take appreciation because I was a guard myself. And Bobby Joe Hill ripped him, and we just were talking about earlier, in broad daylight.
Daylight. Ripped him in half court and went in. With that left hand. Went in with that left hand.
On the left-hand side.
On the left-hand side.
On the left-hand side, yep. Now, we also had Joe Dumars. Joe Dumars was the first black executive for Detroit Pistons, and he was the first black executive to win an NBA title as an executive in 2004.
Yeah.
But do you know that he was also, in 1996, he was the first recipient of the NBA Sportsmanship Award, which eventually was named after him.
Yeah. So Joe Dumars, even when he was with the Bad Boys, he was always a class act. He was the one. He played the bad boy style. He was tough defensively. He was up in your chest. He shut you down, but he wasn't. He was never really considered a bad boy.
Right.
So he was always a class act.
Yes. Also, you got a couple, because I got a couple I want to talk about. You got some.
Well, the one that I'm always he's not basketball, but coming from the
Sure.
city of Detroit, and someone that my grandfather always talked about, and he was just a legend. That was Joe Dumars.
Yeah.
I mean, not Joe Dumars, Joe Louis.
Joe Louis, right?
The Brown Bomber. All right, he really uplifted Detroit back in those 30s and 40s. They used to crowd around the radio and listen to him fight. He fought down at Brewster Projects. He was supposed to be going to music class, and he would take his money. He wouldn't go to music class. He would go down to Brewster Center and learn how to box. Okay, and that took him all the way. The Brown Bomber took him all the way to the champion of the heavyweight champion of the world.
Yes,
he was definitely a historic, iconic figure from Detroit.
Yes. Did you have another one?
Oh, I like to always talk about Spencer Haywood.
Right.
Spencer Haywood, Detroit Pershing. He went to University of Detroit, played the Olympic team in 1968. But he is very significant to the game of basketball because he was the first one that declared hardship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he was the first one that, and when they came with the hardship rule that you can leave college early if you have some type of financial hardship, then he was the one that started that, and that is forgotten.
Right.
Spencer Haywood, he had some hands on him. I have big hands, playing basketball, but he had a third digit. Okay, on his finger, his hands was just so huge, and I shook his hand one time, and it just engulfed my hand. But Spencer Haywood could play basketball. He played for Will Robinson. Ralph Simpson was on the team. It was a baseball player for the Tigers. I forgot his name, but they had a dynamic team here in Detroit. But Spencer Haywood, another iconic figure from Detroit.
Yes. Now, I got one, and this was very, very significant, especially during the unrest period, was the riots of '67.
Yes.
Willie Horton.
Yes.
Willie Horton was the first, and I did not know this until I read it. Willie Horton was the first Black Detroiter to play for the Tigers. He signed out of Northwestern High School in 1961.
Yes.
He signed on the dotted line and received a new car and a $50,000 bonus, the third highest bonus from a Black player that could receive that at that time.
Yes.
But this is the significant part. It was Horton in 1967 during the riots. He left directly after a game to drive his car to the middle of the rebellion to quell the rioters, to tell them to go home.
Yes.
Now, it really didn't work, they said, because they still was out there tearing up. But he took it upon himself. He didn't even take his uniform off.
Right.
He drove all into the rebellion and told everybody to stop. Okay?
No,
Could have got killed. He put his life on the line.
He put his life on the line. We was at Tiger Stadium one time, and my grandfather told me, where Tiger Stadium was, right there on Michigan Avenue in Trumbull, and then you got left field, okay? Well, they could see, 12th Street, Martin Luther King, 12th Street, they could actually see the smoke, all right, over the left field, over left field, they could actually see the smoke coming up from everything burning.
Right.
And so, yes, he did exactly what you said. He went up Trumbull, went down 12th Street, and to try to get the people to go home.
Yeah.
John Conyers did the same thing. We have another iconic figure in Detroit history. Right. He was out and did the same thing, trying to stop the riot.
Yes. My last one that I have, and again, it was so many, but I need to go on the football side and talk about Coach Ron Thompson. And I remember Coach Thompson because he was over at the Porters. He started off at McKenzie, though, okay? Mm-hmm. And he led the Stags to the 1971-1975 PSL baseball title game, and he coached the football team to 2 division titles. He organized St. Cecilia, the Little League, the Beacons, and I think he was part of the Cubs for a minute, and there were some things going on there with some racial things, and he left and went to St. Cecilia and formed the Beacons with Sam Washington. So, but Ron Thompson, and again, I remember him because I used to go to the Poors. They used to call the center right next to the Poors Visitation.
Right.
Okay, and I used to go in there and hoop, and I used to see him. He's a very large guy, very quiet, soft-spoken. But when he spoke, you probably hear him a mile, 2 miles away because he had that booming voice. But I do remember Coach Thompson, and again, at the Poors, he coached football. He had 8 state titles. 8.
Yeah, they was yes. They was Class D. They was Class D. You couldn't beat them. You know, them Class D schools before us, that football team was dynamic. You know.
No. And he's also in the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. But then the ones I want to recognize Rick by name, these are basketball. And yeah, because I'm a little partial to basketball because I was a basketball player. Eddie Rachel, over at the Poors. Charles Coles, Charlie Coles of Saginaw. My coach at Central, Wynn Henry. Woody Thomas and Dave Sneed. Those 3 guys, as significant as they were to me, because I went to Central High School. We're going to be talking to a stag here in a minute. We see him on camera over there.
Right.
but those 3 guys, especially, and I'll be remiss if I don't put Dot Wilson in there.
Oh yeah.
Because my house, where my house at, you know.
Right.
Dot, man, and I gotta say this real quick. Coach Henry and Dot, but more so Coach Henry. Dot was more like a strong man. He was his assistant coach. He kept us on his toes, but back then, you know, they had what we call the paddle, the wood. And if you did not play defense, you had to go see Coach Henry, Winfield Henry, with the wood.
Without a doubt.
You know, it's probably children or capital punishment now for kids. Can't do that now. But back then, the wood.
I have
Okay.
2 right quick that
Right.
when I was growing up, I used to always hear my uncles and stuff talk about, and naturally, Will Robinson, okay, Miller High, Pershing.
We gonna talk about him.
Then first African American coach, NCAA Illinois State coach Doug Collins was really supposed to get the University of Detroit job, and they gave it to Jim Harding, and that's why Spencer Haywood left. That was a University of Detroit hasn't been the same since then, because he was supposed to get that job, and they gave it to Jim Harding. I was a young man when all this was happening, but I remember it like yesterday. And then naturally everything he did with the Detroit Pistons. Okay, he one of the nicest guys. Coach Scott, we used to go down to Cobo Halls. They had the kids down there, and I took a picture with Coach Scott. I think I was 10 years old, 11 years old. Took a picture with Will Robinson. Took a picture with Lanier. They used to down there. They used to open up Cobo Hall, Cobo Arena to the kids. Okay, we all be down there on Saturdays and partake in the festivities.
Yeah, they're gonna talk about that in a minute. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then the other one was Fred Snowden, because all I used to hear about was Fred Snowden and down in Arizona when he got Cornell Norman, Eric Money, and Big Bob Elliott, and took them down there and started that good team that they had down there in Arizona. So big shout outs to Will, Coach Robinson, and Coach Snowden.
Yes. Our podcast, Garland Podcast, is produced by 22 Design Studios, and I want to pay a couple bills before we introduce our guests. I have Top Hat Popcorn Creations. And again, this is my cousin Joy Lanier's business. That she's been featured on many TV news and radio outlets. She's been on Local 4. She's been on Fox 2 News. They do weddings, birthdays, special events. They will create your own event. So pop in Top Hat Popcorn Creations. You can find the advertisement on our website. It's the RedCupPodcast.com. She's located on 1376 Broadway in downtown Detroit. Again, pop in Top Hat Popcorn Creations. My cousin Joy Lanier will be there and be ready and be glad to serve you. You got one, Paul?
And we have, yes, it's Tiffany with the T. We've been really promoting this. This is very good in this pandemic season that we're in. But this is a tea that boosts your immune system, it cleanses your vital organs, and burns fat. This is a great supplement for your body. Again, during this pandemic. So get the tea. Get your tea today. It's Tiffany with the T. And you can find her on our website. You can find her on our business page. And you can also find her on Facebook and her business page. But again, it's Tiffany with the T. A detox tea that boosts your immune system, cleans your vital organs, and burns fat.
Okay. Tiffany with the T. I drink that tea too, by the way. And it's done wonders for me in my weight loss journey as I try to work on this figure of mine.
You know, you got a little fond of youth, man. I'm telling you, you look 40, man. You look about 40 now. 40? Okay. I thought 25 years old. I keep telling people I'm 25 years old. I don't know where they get the 60 from. I'm not 60. Well, you 25, I'm 24. I'm a year behind you. So wherever you go, I'm right behind you.
Okay. Yes, sir. Again, our podcast is Garland RedCup Variety Podcast, and it's produced by 22 Design Studios. And at this time, we have our guests on, and we want to get right into it. I'm going to introduce these gentlemen right now. And our first one there that I'm looking at to my right is Mr. Randy Henry. And welcome to the show, Randy. Randy went to Mackenzie High School, played at Illinois State under Will Robinson. We just missed for 2 years. He was drafted in 1976 by the Detroit Pistons. Coached literal me at Highland Park Community College, and most recently retired after 38 years from WDIV Local 4. We welcome to the show Randy Henry. Welcome, my brother. We are
real good.
Doing great. Yes, sir. The next young man that I want to introduce, this young man was drafted by the Detroit Pistons in 1961 and played for the Pistons 7 years before moving on to the Baltimore Bullets and the Virginia Squires. And after retiring as a player, became an assistant coach under then Pistons head coach Earl Lloyd. He was named the head coach of the Pistons in 1972, and upon having success guiding the Pistons to a 52-30 record in 1974, was named the NBA Coach of the Year, becoming the first black head coach of an NBA team to receive the honor. And we welcome to the show Coach Ray Scott. Welcome, Coach.
Yes.
Can you hear us, Coach? Can you hear us, Coach? Okay. Can you,
I am here. Yes. Okay. I was just soaking in the applause.
And the gentleman there, we got last year, gentleman Gary Teasley. Gary went to Mackenzie High School as well. I don't know if I should put my boot button on them or not. I'm not going to do that because they went to they were the rivals of me for Central. But anyway, Gary went to Mackenzie. He was a teammate of Randy. He played at Southern University, played pro ball overseas, and after his playing days, got into coaching, becoming the first black varsity head coach at Southfield Schools. Not just Southfield High School, Southfield Schools. And he's now retired from teaching and coaching, but we welcome to the show Coach Gary Teasley. Welcome, Coach. And Will just popped back out. But he'll be back on here. He'll be on here in a second. Will, are you there? He'll be back on here in a second. But we're going to just move forward here. And gentlemen, we want to dive into our history again. Our show is historical blacks in historical areas and from the Detroit metro area. And we're so glad to have you on the show today. And we want to dive into something that you all have experienced. And Randy, we want to start with you because we were talking about Coach Robinson here this minute. And Now, Will Robinson was the first black Division I head coach at Illinois State, and you played 4 years there for him. Can you share with us the recruiting experience under Coach Robinson?
I'll tell you what's really unique about Will. Will was in my life way before I was even born. He was at River High School. He had all my aunts and uncles, my mom. They all knew him. I heard about this guy named Coach Rob all these years. Coach Rob, Coach Rob. My uncle played for him. My uncle's senior year, he had to either work, because his grandfather, my grandfather, his father, he had to work or play for children. So he told Coach Robinson, I do what my daddy said, and you need me. We'll fire senior year. So when I signed at Illinois State, he comes to my house. Unbeknownst to me, I really didn't figure this out yet. I come out from the back, my mother's hugging this guy. I said, I didn't even know this guy. He said, this is Coach Rob. He's hugging on, kissing on the cheek. He wasn't a happy guy. And I was at Indian Hills Community College in Detroit. And Bob Royal, you already know who that is. Like the contact person before me, along with a great coach. I talk about great high school coaches. Elmer Richmond, who won in the 79, has to be in that group. Please would tell you, just come over there. We had that paddle. Tell him that, nobody ever complained about this. Anyway, they were my connection with Will. He said, this is sweet. I left the kids. I'm not trying to, I put my laundry out there with a 1.9. Indian Hills Community College got a 3.75, maybe Dean's list. I left with Illinois State, the best country, and Coach Scott, I want to point this out. He was coaching here, and he had two injuries. He had John Miguel and Kevin Porter got injured that next year. And he was fired. And he's saying that one more year, I might have been that 12 guy. I always think about that. And these are the biggest things I've had. We talk about that, but my uncle, Kitty Neville, way to good thing. The first time I ever saw was Baby was here. Ray was on the team. We had a guy named Eddie Miles, the Golden Arm. So I saw this in 1966. I said, man, I want to do that. Whatever that was in basketball, I want to learn that. But Will was a great guy. He was really into, I went to 73. If you had your hair braided, I have none now. He was tough. He was all about innings, coming off the bus, coming from great man. I take that away from me, or to have to become how to be a man. I can make myself out of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Carry on, so I played for him for 2 years. And she told me one time, and this is a great line, his son said this at his funeral. He said, Randy, you're the best of a bad lot. All my worst players, you're the best one. He said, but out of all my players, I think you're going to be successful in life because you understand you got to go to fight. And so that stuck with me. His son said that at the funeral. And I'm sitting there with Spencer Haywood. I would not have gotten in. I mean, because once you go under the wheel, you're in that family with Will Robinson. So, long story short, we pulled it together. The lady said, you can't go in. And Spencer turned around and said, look, that's my brother, he's with me. And that's how I got into the team. I was never able to get in. So, being with Spencer, being part of that family, Brother Hawkins, Doug Collins, Bill Giger, what have you. Bill Page from here, Jim Floyd, Stephen Stewart, all a bunch of crap. Dennis Murray. So Will took a lot of us out of the city and put it on the side of life.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Go ahead, Paul.
All right. Hey, thank you, Brother Henry. That was very nice. The next question gonna be for you, Coach Scott. After you retired as a player, you was hired by another iconic figure, Coach Earl Lloyd, as the assistant coach with the Pistons. What led to Coach Lloyd hiring you for that job? And tell us some of the experiences under Coach Lloyd.
Thank you for that question, Paul. And I do want to say, Paul, you guys are talking about being 24 and 25. You guys can't be referencing the people that you were referencing. Coach I'm making me think I'm losing my mind. Been interviewing these guys when you were two. Randy, you know that? I said, man, Randy's like 38 years in the business. This is nice. Randy Henry is going to be probably one of our better, and this is at the time, this is way before described wing players. Randy was a very good wing player. And imagine his speed and his dexterity running with Kevin Porter.
Oh
And that's
man,
guys. So
Man.
we have our plan and God has his plan.
yeah,
So I congratulate Randy because for 38 years being just a bellwether for us, for our community.
yeah,
Thank you.
yes.
But to answer Paul's question about Coach Lloyd, and guys, forgive me because I just get into a babble about Coach Lloyd, But in 1961, as a 22-year-old kid in Philadelphia, Earl Lloyd came to scout me, and I was playing with the Allentown Jets, not the college. So it wasn't even a thing of professional scouts scouting you in the East. And Earl Lloyd told me in 1961, he said, you're going to be our number one draft. Well, as you guys know, everybody here, Gary, you know it, Randy, you know it, Paul and Logan, people talk a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
I'm thinking, maybe, Earl, he just sugarcoating it and jiving me because he's here with my family and everything. And he said, you're going to be our number one draft. So comes the draft, I'm on a subway and going up to the Bronx in New York to play a game. And I said, let me get the evening paper and see what the draft is because the NBA draft is in the And the NBA picks as their number one guy, and it made sense, Walt Bell, the Chicago Bulls. Second guy picked was Tom Smith for the New York Knicks, which made sense because he was a New York guy, which is the New York Knicks, made sense. Third guy, Cincinnati. Cincinnati told me they were going to draft him. They drafted Larry Siegfried from the great Ohio State team from Philly. So I'm reading the paper and I see they stop. Detroit Pistons. I slept on the subway. Think about that. I'm in New York, screaming on the subway, 6'9", 220 pounds. People thought they would have to put me in. So now I'm like, oh, Earl Lloyd kept his word. He's a man of his word. So now I go on and I have my career. I play 11 years. And I'm in Virginia working in the front office and I get a phone call and it's Earl Lloyd. And he said, Dave, I help you coach this team. I got Curtis Lowe, Robin Hill, Dave Bing, Chris Ford. I got these kids. I need your help. And I said, well, there's no doubt I'm on my way. And I'm in Virginia Beach. That means when you work in Virginia Beach at 4 o'clock, you're on the beach. You done left that office. You done take off your tie, your jacket, and it was like, oh my God. But I'm gonna leave Virginia Beach because this was Earl.
kind of froze. Oh, yep, we lost him.
I'm going to tell you about Earl Lloyd to pick up on how great a guy he is. When I was in high school, for the school dial, my journalism teacher was Maxine Perry. His husband, talking about black legends, was Lou Perry, who was the first black assistant coach in the NFL. He was the first black to ever broadcast the game nationally. And he was the first black print manager in the most. So his son Don is currently general manager of the New York Knicks, Scott Perry. So
Right.
It's in his blood.
Sure.
But anyway, we were trying to interview Earl Lloyd. So she says, I want to call him. And his name was on first. So he calls my house. One of his cell phones. So he calls my house and says, this is Earl Lloyd. So I thought somebody was playing with me. I hung up on him. He calls back. He says, no, young man, this is Earl Lloyd. And he came to our school, and I lost him. He came to Kinsey. He knew Miss Perry, but he came to Kinsey. Real, I mean, he's about 6'10", real nicely dressed. Took pictures with us, and for the school paper, which was down in Kinsey. Jerome Brown and I sat down and interviewed him. And he said, look, come to the game. Earl Lloyd he was that class guy. Ray Scott was correct. He was a class guy. He kept his word. He came to school. He came to the Kansas. I lost him. I mean, like, Earl Lloyd is in our building, man. This guy's he's in our building. Are you serious?
Yes.
One of the things I always remember about Coach Lloyd was that he was on a program, and he told the Detroit Pistons, he said, "Hey, y'all got the #1 pick. You need to drive Earl Monroe." Earl Monroe. And they didn't pay attention to him, and they drafted Jimmy Walker. Okay, Jimmy Walker can play. You know, Providence let him. You know, that's Rich Jalen Rose here, but Earl Lloyd said, "You need to drive Earl to Pearl Monroe," and they said, "Nope. He down there in North Carolina. We don't know if he can play in the NBA." And I always remember that Earl Lloyd just threw his hands up and said, "You know, if y'all can't see this man gonna be great, then I don't know what else to say."
You know, Paul, he averaged 42 points a game that year. He averaged 42 points and Winston Salem. You know,
42 points. He was playing with pros in the summer.
In New York. Wow. Taking all those guys. You know. But you know one thing about Earl Lloyd? He was the first black ever playing the game because the Syracuse Nats played earlier than Cooper played later. Because of timing, so how modest he was. I said, "Well, you the first black ever playing the game." He said, "It was only because my game was earlier than Cooper." So that's the kind of guy that we can
Class guy.
Let's move on, Coach Teasley.
Yes, sir.
And again, welcome to the show. And I want to ask you, in terms of what aspirations led you to coaching, and what individuals influenced you along your coaching journey?
You know what? I'm glad you asked. I'm no different than these gentlemen on the panel today. I just have that passion about basketball. I fell in love with basketball during the Cassie Russell days. I used to watch Channel 50, and it was something about the roar of the crowd that just excited me. And you know, then as far as football, I wasn't that fond of getting hit, so I kind of, you know, I said, you know, it was rocking up there in Ann Arbor, and I said, well, I want to be in that kind of atmosphere. There's 3 people that I have to mention. I have an uncle who is a teacher / coach in the Detroit public school system. His name is Ron Teasley. Mm-hmm. And you know, as far back as our family reunions, I've always been around sports. I had an aunt who can bowl 300 with her eyes closed. All the different types of games I was always involved with. And as I got older, my uncle coached at a school that was kind of our rival at Northwestern, Detroit Northwestern. And, you know, he just made coaching look so easy. And I never, you know, saw him wear a tie. He looked like he was having fun. And I said, that's what I want to do. But later then I found out that it wasn't as easy as it appeared. And the whole educational process was much different as far as a career opposed to when I was a student. Also, there was a guy named John McClendon who I met in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And he was a friend of my coach. And he came down and did a clinic in Baton Rouge. And man, I'll give you the short version. He gave me a pair of orange, blue, and green suede Converse. And man, I came back to St. Cecilia, and man, I thought I had arrived. And I would call him, you know, every year. He came up to Detroit when I got my head coaching position at Detroit Renaissance High School. and he did a clinic for some of my guys, and we didn't win a lot of games that year. But I did have an invitation from one of my players. He's a lawyer on Wall Street. Those Renaissance high school guys were amazing. We didn't win a lot of games, but a lot of them are really wealthy and doing well. And then lastly, my college coach was Carl E. Stewart, and that's where I learned how to, run the fast break. And we averaged about 92 points a game for about 3 years in a row, and we're, the academic side of coaching is where he turned my life around, and I wanted to kind of help do that with others.
Yeah.
That was big. Everybody on my team at Southern University got their degree.
Oh, that's
teammates.
wonderful.
Yeah, and my roommate.
That has to be the focus today. We a lot of with the AAU basketball and college basketball, and especially with everything that's going on, the focus got to go back to getting not just playing basketball, but getting too.
Yes,
absolutely.
I always called high school the assembly line. I felt like I was on the early part of the assembly line working with kids. I never did like working with old folks anyway. So, going to college, Coach McClendon told me I was too much of a family man to be a college coach. So I ended up kind of staying in my lane, and I love working with kids, and the biggest satisfaction that I get is running into some of my former players and if they're doing well today.
Amen.
yes.
I played basketball with one of your all-time greats over there at Southfield, Vince Bean. I know he was teaching over there.
Right.
Yeah, Vince Bean. I grew up in Inkster in the Inkster Romulus area, and he went to Romulus before he transferred to Southfield. Then he played at Southfield, then went to Michigan and came back and was over there teaching at Southfield. But Vince Bean.
Yeah,
one of Southfield's finest.
He was like the prodigal son. I mean, we worked together. He was younger than I was, but he got all the perks because he was Vince Bean.
right. Yeah, Vince Bean. Absolutely.
I want to introduce our guest that just popped on, Will McCoy. Now, Will is a Big Ten official, and he was part of that first all-black officiating crew from the Big Ten for the U of M versus Minnesota game this past college football season. He's also currently the athletic director at Romulus Summit Academy. So we want to welcome Will to the show. Will, welcome.
Thanks, Logan. Thanks, everybody.
How you doing?
On late.
How Lovejoy doing out there, Brother McCoy?
He's doing pretty good.
He's doing pretty good? Okay. Yeah, I talked to him. I talked to him early in the year when he wondered if he was going to go to Ipsy Prep, and he told me, he said, "No, I'm staying at my school." And then I was happy about that. I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Tell us a little about the road you took to become an official, and how did you get to the college level of officiating?
Well, man, so I started. I was in the military for 5.5 years, got out of the military and moved to the Detroit area. And I just started doing Little League football out in Livingston County, Saturday mornings, Pop Warner League stuff. And then gradually moved up to the high school level, doing varsity high school football. And as I was graduating from Wayne State, one of my mentors kept pushing me, saying, "Hey, man, you need to go to this clinic. And try to become a college football official." And quite honestly, in my mind, I didn't think I was ready, but he saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself at the time. So I paid the money, went to the clinic, happened to be right out in Ann Arbor. In Lansing. And after the clinic was over, the supervisor for the GLIAC, which is the Division II league in this area, which is Wayne State and Saginaw Valley, told me, "Oh, I don't think you're ready yet, but maybe next year." So I was actually pretty relieved that he told me I wasn't ready, because I didn't think I was ready anyway. So I went back to what I was doing, and then I got a phone call midway through that football season, and somebody couldn't work, and he needed a guy. And he called me and said, "Hey, Will, what do you think about going to Tiffin University
for a college game in 2 weeks from now, and I was excited. So that it's been on from there. Moved up from the GLIAC. I spent 7 years in the GLIAC, and then moved up to the Mid-American to the Missouri Valley Football Conference, and then the Mid-American Conference. And I was able to do my first Big Ten game this past season. So it's been a long road. I've been officiating football now for about 14 years, and you just have to keep grinding with it, stay in the rules. And now there's a big push making sure that you stay in shape. So they're not allowing out-of-shape officials out there anymore. So it's a lot of out-of-season preparation that goes into it, but it's very exciting.
You know, the game they got so fast. You know, you have to be in shape.
Yes. To
officiate.
Yeah.
You know, you can't even. You know, we watch games, and even looking on replay, they got to really, really slow it down to just to be able to tell if something happened. So imagine being on that field and not in shape, and you got to get there to make your call.
Right.
So I definitely can understand that, because it's just they too fast now.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, brother.
Yes.
What was it like, Will, when you started the game? You guys had all black crew. What was that like when y'all walked out on the field? I mean, because I learned something when I learned pre-show this past Thursday. I mean, when you talking about Black History Month, I mean, that has to be huge.
It was. I'd have to actually go back a little bit further than that, because we get our assignments back in like I think probably like early July, right? So we're getting our assignments, and we get our dates, and they tell us, well, these are the dates you're going to be working. And with COVID, we didn't get our dates on time, so we got our dates a little late. We see our dates, and I'm thinking, okay, October 24th. I know the MAC isn't working, the Big Ten's working. It's only a couple games. I'm thinking, well, probably I'm an alternate, you know what I'm saying, because I'm one of the more inexperienced guys, so I'm still working my way up in that regard. And then I'm driving into work one day, and I get a phone call from another official who's in the Big Ten, and he seems to have all the information. He knows what's going on, who's going to be where. And he texts me, actually, and I'm driving. Probably shouldn't say this. He texts me while I'm driving. I'm reading the text message, and he says, I see you got a big game coming up. And at that point, I had no clue what he was talking about. So I said, oh, okay, yeah, I'm thinking. So then it comes out, it says Michigan at Minnesota. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm an alternate at Michigan at Minnesota, which is great. I'm okay with that. And then he said, no, I'm hearing it's going to be an all-black officiating crew for the first time in FBS history, blah, blah, blah. And I'm driving, I'm like, hold on. Hold on.
Yeah.
Then it starts hitting me. I'm like, so I'm gonna be honest, Randy. I was probably nervous for the 2 months leading up to that game. Every day, just a pit in my stomach, because I understood the gravity of the situation. I understood how far things have come in this country as far as race relations, and how far we still need to go. And then on the fact that it was going to be, come to find out later, it's going to be a night game, 8 o'clock, prime time on ABC. No other games going on at that night. So it's going to be millions of people on that game watching it. All of our peers within the MAC, the Big Ten, and all of officiating throughout the country. So I almost, to be quite honest, I was very nervous leading up to the game. And I would receive phone calls from NFL guys who are from this area, other Big Ten officials, just saying, hey, man, you're going to do a great job. You're going to do a great job. And so I get on the plane, I arrive, and to be quite honest, from the time I landed in Minnesota to the time we worked the game, I wasn't nervous. So I think it all, what I was used to kind of took over, the routine of it took over. And at the end of the day, it just boils down to being a football game. 11 versus 11 with 8 officials there working. But it was, I think everybody understood the gravity of it. We all felt pride in it. We all wanted to make sure we did a great job and represented for our culture, for our ethnicity and for our race. So we all understood it, but at the end of the day, we tried to make sure that we kept it normal and realized it was just a football game.
Yes.
No, you were born. You were born for that moment. You were born for that day.
Yep.
So that's why the coach they got. You just the calm just came over you because you were put here to make that mark, and you did. I have a website, Positive Black Network, where I just promote positive things. I remember I was so happy to put that on that day. Because that was a very special night. Man. That was a very special night. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, Coach, I'm a little mad at you right now.
What's that?
Gary Teasley, first black coach in Southfield, Black history. William McCoy, first all-black team. Ray Scott, first black coach of the year. I've done nothing before. You should have me on this team. I'm standing to Paul Cotton, man.
No, you were no.
I love them all, bro. I just met Will, though.
No, you're significant as well because you under the tutelage of but you under the tutelage of Will Robinson.
Yeah, boy.
So you were huge too.
Will was such a class guy. And here's the thing. All the cats that he had that he put in school and supposed to hit with Ralph Simpson and Bill Page and Mel Daniels. I can't even name all the cats. He was probably all the guys who were doctors, lawyers, and attorneys. He was always the type of kid who graduated. And that was his whole thing. Like, okay, let's get in the sport. I want to graduate. And once I graduated from college, because he had left Mr. Chris, said, don't worry about it, I'm going to draft. I said, man. And the guy who started 67, playing basketball and playing for get drafted some 9 years later, it was freaking unbelievable. But Will did all of it. Will Robinson.
Yes. The Garland RedCup Variety Podcast is produced by 22 Design Studios. And as we continue on with our guests, Randy Henry, Gary Teasley, William McCoy, and Ray Scott. Coach Scott, now you were hired as the Pistons' next head coach shortly after the 1972 season began, and again, eventually led to a tremendous season in 74. And you got Coach of the Year honors, and you were the first Black NBA head coach to receive such an honor. Can you tell us what the 74 team was like?
Oh, the 74 team was unbelievable because it was based on two All-Americans, All-Pros, and Hall of Famers, which is Bob Lanier and Dave Biggs. What we had to work towards was becoming a cohesive unit because at that time, if you remember the standards of basketball, it was Wilt Chamberlain, it was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, it was Nate Thurman, it was Dave Cowens, it was Willis Reed. These are people that when you think about them, they did not allow you to sleep at night. This is like a constant nightmare. But the guy that really beat me, and I always have to tell people, the one player I never prepared for, and when you guys hear it, it's going to really jar your memories. The one player I didn't prepare for was Clifford Ray with the Chicago Bulls. Clifford Ray had 23 points and 19 rebounds in a deciding game that we lost by 2 points in Chicago. And it still troubles me to this day. I accept the responsibility as a coach. I didn't think Clifford Ray could shoot fall-away jump shots and hook shots and go into the post. And this, I'm looking at this on the floor. I'm going like, are you kidding me? This is Clifford Ray. I'm prepared for Kareem and all these other guys. I'm not prepared for Clifford Ray to do the damage that he did. So it got us out of the playoffs, but it taught me a lesson. Be totally prepared. You think you prepare for individuals. I'm for Van Leer and Sloan and Walker and Butterbean, but I didn't. And I said, okay, from now on, I will team prepare, and it taught me a lesson. Clifford Ray, but that time I had Don Adams, who was a genius of defense, of position defense, how to help out, take a charge. So I had Don Adams. I had the great Curtis Rowe, who was my warrior. The Curtis Rowe is a guy, and all you guys that coached, and you coaches, Paul, you Gary, you Logan, you know when you walk in the locker room, you look for that guy that you know is ready and is going to set the tone. And that guy for me was Curtis Rowe. He was my warrior. Every night I walked into the locker room, I'd say, Curtis, you okay? I'm okay. I was good. And, you know, I got other guys rubbing their knees, rubbing their elbows, putting the analgesic on and all that stuff. I was like, oh my goodness. So are you ready to go tonight? You know, but Curtis was that guy. My guard, of course, was Dave Bing, who was an all-time player, top 50 player, great guard, did unimaginable things in Detroit. Randy knows, Gary knows. When you guys took the buses downtown, Logan, you know, Paul, you know,
Yes,
William,
sir.
you know, when you guys took the buses downtown to see the Pistons, you came because of Dave Bing. Dave Bing was that guy. And I always tell people, he introduced professional basketball to Detroit. The guy that really institutionalized basketball in Detroit was Isaiah Thomas. You know, there's no getting around that. And I think Chauncey Billups, to a great degree, perfected it, made us a real perfected professional group of basketball players. But the guys that I had, that Chris Ford, John Mengelt, Dave Bing guards, and my big men, I brought in George Trapp, Mr. Coyle. We got George Trapp from Highland Park. Changed the whole.
Instant heat.
One of the reasons we won 52 games is because of George Trapp, because they haven't figured out yet how to stop him. A 6'9" guy with a 25-foot
Instant heat.
That's difficult to defend. George won games for us in the last second. You know, I started getting used to it. You know, because at one time we went from 12 and 11 to 40 and 19. And it was George Trapp lit that fire in Portland, Oregon, beat 5 seconds to go. We run the play, and the play goes to George. George goes up and shoots the ball. I'm going like, that damn thing is going in. And we walked off with the victory, and that just started that momentum that we all need from our kids, where they believe, not in me as the coach, they have to believe in themselves. And that group of guys began to believe in themselves, and they made history in Detroit. I wish it had lasted longer, but the thing that got in the way with that group was money. Everybody wanted to make money. And I was trying to convince them, let's be like the Celtics. Let's make the money because we win the championship. You know, let's not make the money in negotiations with our agents. Difficult thing to do, and I think that really harmed us.
That coach, that 7-game series was the first series. That 7th game was the first series that made me cry as a kid. You know, if I'm not mistaken, when Howard Porter hit that jumper from the corner to beat y'all and set in that game 7, I cried like a baby. I mean, I did. I mean, because I love that 7-14. I love that team.
If you think you were crying, you should have came by my house.
Then Howard Porter was on the team after that, but Howard Porter hit that little jumper from the side to beat y'all in game 7.
Howard was a deadly shooter, and he subbed for Butterbean or Chet Walker. And like I said, we had Butterbean and Chet figured out. You know, I mean, they are great players. They're going to score, but hurting us in critical situations, we knew what to do. Howard Porter was a great third forward. In fact, I brought Howard here to Detroit.
I know the next season.
And that was part of the demise of our team, because guys don't really understand that you win in sports with talent at a professional level. It's the guys that work hard and go out and build their teams and build a team with talent. And Jack McCluskey did that with the Bad Boys, and Joe Dumars did it with the Going to Work crew. They built that team, and they got Rasheed Wallace. They never looked back. So it's learning how to build a team, and I was learning that because you win with talent in the NBA. It's a talent league,
Yes.
and as good as the young Pistons are right now, and they're talented and they're good, but they're young, and they're going to have to understand what their talent gets them to do on a night in, night out basis. And that's just a lesson for the ages. Learn your talent. Learn who plays for you, what kids can do, how you can help them, what they need psychologically. It's a lot that goes into it, guys.
Yes. Mr. Teasley, Coach Teasley, as we go forward here, what were your teams like for the years you coached at Southfield? And can you share with us that one main something that happened within your coaching prowess?
I got a lot of stories.
I know you do.
It's fascinating that you say that because I started my teaching and coaching career in Detroit, and I consider myself a Detroiter to the core.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about crossing 8 Mile. And for me, I think growing up, other than going to Northland, that's really all that I knew. And so as an adult, some of the benefits or the perks that I had, simply things like having access to the gym. We could get in the gym 6 a.m. in the morning or 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And that just wasn't the case when I was in Detroit. So I was just excited. We had a ball rack full of basketballs and everything that you would need for a kid to be successful. And during my first tenure, I'll never forget, I had a minivan, a Toyota minivan, and I could fit in there. And I was pulling up to Southfield High School, and I was on my way to the gym. And then one of the players that I was coaching pulled up in the next lane to me, and he was in a Lexus. and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I said, "Boy, we got something going on." One thing that I remember clearly, as far as basketball, myself personally, I remember playing basketball with a backboard in the alley on a telephone pole. And there was something about basketball players, with a combination of a little thug, a little athletic, a little intimidation. It was a mixture of those things. But when I came to Southfield, it was an entirely different culture. And the expectations were high, but the ingredients were kind of different. I'll put it that way because one of my former players might be out there right now. But having said that, the first stint of my coaching career, we would always win maybe 10 or 11 games, and I had control over the scheduling. And so we would kind of not put ourselves in the lion's den as much as we could have. And then there was a coaching change. Coach Scott, Coach Kelso. Coach Kelso came out to Southfield for about 3 or 4 years in the middle of my tenure. And then he stopped coaching, and then I came back. I don't know if they didn't have anybody else or what, but I got the opportunity to coach again. During that second tenure, we had a brand new field house, a brand new weight room, and so forth. And, all of a sudden, the migration from Detroit to Southfield started to increase. I looked up and we just started, I had muscles in the house. And it was nothing that I really did. I didn't go out to recruit, but we just had a cluster of players that started to come in. I've got players that have played pro ball, several Division I players. And my last 2 kids I got one guard out in Oregon right now, and we got players go to Michigan. So we've been very fortunate as far as that was concerned. And just, we wouldn't turn our backs to anybody. We went to the wrestling in the Final Four 2 years in a row. And I had kids that were, it was something about our community that they backed me. And I have to give homage to my principal, who, when I applied for the job, I told him I was so committed to Detroit that I didn't know if I wanted to come. And so he said, well, I'm going to give you 3 days. And this was a large financial increase that I told my wife, I'm a Detroiter. And then she agreed with me. And man, let me tell you something. About the second night, in the middle of the night, I just woke up and I started sweating. And I said, oh no, I better hurry up and call this guy. And my principal, who was a graduate of Alabama A&M, who went to Henry Ford High School, former football player, he told me, he first started cussing me out, and then he told me if there was anybody else, I would have not been able to get that job. So I eventually got hired, and like I said, I enjoyed it. It took me 12 minutes to go to work every day. So I could get there as early as I needed to. I could get out when I wanted to leave and have a good life at the same time. And it was a wonder. I was glad that I did it. And, there were African-American kids, black kids in Southfield too. That was man, I used to go to the store and I would make the street. And I used to look around and I didn't see any kids. And then the kids that I saw, I thought were Detroit kids. And then the principal told me, he said, we got black kids out here. What's wrong with you? And I looked around and I started to meet kids and they gravitated to me because there weren't as many African-American teachers out there during that time. And then we grew up together, and like I said, to this day, I got kids in corporate America, I got lawyers, I got doctors.
Wonderful.
One of my point guards is a doctor. And hey, those kind of things you don't hear about. I give accolades to all the great high schools in the country. But if you want to go down and jot down some of these things, like who's the lawyers and where are the doctors and where are the teachers, and I feel like that's more important than winning the championship.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Mr. McCoy, let me ask you this. Please give our listening audience any words of encouragement, especially the young people listening who desire to become an official.
It's interesting that you asked that, or that's the topic, because a lot of people ask, man, how, what do I have to do if they're already in high school or if they're looking to move up? And I tell them there's no recipe, there's no book for it, right? You have to start at the bottom level, build your foundation, and learn the right way. I was fortunate when I first started, became an official. First time I ever stepped on the football field, there were 2 guys already doing on their way to doing college football on that field with me. So they taught me how to do it the right way from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the most important parts of being successful as an official, is having a good foundation of how to do it the right way, the mechanics of it, the rules knowledge, the philosophies. If you put all that together, I think you have the opportunity to be successful. But you have to be able to invest in yourself. So officiating is not something that you can look in a book and say, okay, if I go get a degree in officiating and I can work at this level, move up to that level. It doesn't work that way. It's about networking. It's about putting yourself in positions to be seen, investing in yourself, whether that's, traveling to a clinic outside of Baltimore that they have, that is called the Tom Beard Clinic. Mm-hmm. And it's a great opportunity for young officials if you're willing to spend that money on invest in yourself to put yourself in front of college supervisors and also learn from guys who are doing it at the National Football League level. So that would be my advice to anyone interested. I can also say that, especially in the Detroit area, it's not widely known, but we have a very rich history of African American. It's a more recent history, but a very rich history of African American officials working in the Big Ten and now in the NFL. So there's two white hats in the NFL. I won't mention their names, but their officiating careers started right here in the Detroit area.
Oh, okay.
So, like I said, quite a few in the Big Ten and the Mid-American Conference. And the other thing that the other piece of advice that I would give is don't be afraid to ask questions and don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help.
Yeah.
Right? So I think a lot of people, especially young people nowadays, are afraid to ask for help. They don't want to volunteer, right? Everything has to have a little bit of monetary value in it, right? I was always willing to go spend my time watching and taking notes and learning. So I think being willing to do that, being willing to reach out to officials that are in the position where you want to be, investing in yourself and networking.
Mm-hmm.
Perfecting your craft.
Yes.
Thank you.
We got a few minutes left here, and again, our show, the Garland RedCup Variety Podcast, is produced by 22 Design Studios. Coach Henry, I want to present this last question to you. And what did Coach Robinson mean to you personally? And could you share any words of wisdom that he shared with you that influenced you?
I think the biggest thing that will influence me is how to be a man. I said before, I run the culture of my 3 years, and my hair was great. And he cussed me out, and he been around real quick, man. He would call you an SOB. But now I thought that was the name. He said so much. But he said, unbraid your hair. I want people to look at you and see something in you as a man. Not because your hair is braided, but education is a big point, and so we have built those magic ice packs they had, all these things we had recruited. They were in my truck. So all those were replaced. I'll tell you a short story. So we're in there, Dr. J is there, so they come back to I'm walking out. Unbeknownst to me, I'm the first guy, I'm still excited to be there. Behind me is Dr. J. So people are applauding. Yeah, man, you're here. And I thought that was tapped me on my face with a big fella in the room for me. And we all told Dr. J, we laughed, we asked how he was doing. I thought all those applause for me were really Dr. J. So, I mean, really just a class like man. In my life, I got here. He encouraged me to go to school. He said, because you can play, you want to play, you go to school, you ask for it. I don't have some work to do. I might be one of those that work for all the time. 2 years ago, that's what real means. Just being a man, carry yourself, and remember, put your arm around somebody else. That's what I like to do, This guy came in there, and we do what we do, take the charge, respect you to the coaches, and we remain friends since 1978.
Yeah.
78. You like 1978?
I was a snotty-nosed little 18-year-old. Thought I can do a whole lot of stuff, man. And I was real quick. I was a Prop 48 student back then. They had the Prop 48. I was going to Eastern Michigan, and I was going to play for Jim Boyce, but I ended up at Highland Park. Coach Donahue, Coach Henry, Coach Dawson. God rest Coach Donahue, Coach Dawson's souls. They've all passed on now. But Coach Henry, big influence on my life. And it's so funny now, real quick. Look at what I'm doing now. I mean, I went through the law. I was law enforcement for 31 years. I coached high school, college ball. Now I'm getting into broadcast, radio, and TV and radio because of Coach Henry. Yeah.
You about a great thing, man. I think this is going to grow. Look at the guests you have. I mean, you almost so deep that the podcast is going forward. I watched the most too. I did a great job.
Well, we thank you. We thank you so much. And we're going to close out our show with some last-minute affirmations. Paul, you got any last-minute affirmations there?
Well, we were talking about high school legends. Logan and I, we were talking about Mr. Basketballs. You know, this Demetrius Gore passed away last year. You know, Demetrius Gore, Chastity, University of Pittsburgh. He could play. Always, you know, everybody talked about the judge. I used to always say, man, that boy over there, Chastity, can hoop. But, you know, just want to, give out, some honors to Demetrius Gore. He passed away, and just, he would never be forgotten.
Yes. And mine is, of course, the Tiger Woods. And Tiger was involved in that accident on Tuesday. Praise the Lord, thank you, Jesus. He's doing okay. He has a long road ahead of him. Could have been a lot worse. But that just goes to show and shows us, to tell us that you never know. And stay prayed up, and this actually the good Lord to keep us. So I shout out to Tiger Woods for a speedy recovery. And also, as we close here, we want to shout out to all of our essential workers, especially all those that are in the healthcare, in our hospitals and clinics and nursing homes. And I do understand a lot of teachers are going back in the classroom here soon. And shout outs to all of the teachers, everybody, every essential worker. Will, you're in school, Romney schools. Shout out to you and the great job that you're doing. You as an athletic director, and gentlemen, we're just great and grateful that you all were able to come on our show today. And thank you, Randy Henry.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Gary Teasley.
Thank you.
Thank you, William McCoy. And thank you, Ray Scott.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. And Ray Scott, I asked him a bunch of questions the other night. I got a whole bunch more I got to ask him. I mean, because that 70s team was my era, me and Paul's era, and it was just something.
Yeah, that was my team right there.
And I was telling him
I don't listen to Benny and the Jets to this day.
But man, this has been an honor just to talk to you gentlemen today. And thank you so very much. We got a nice gift for you all for appearing on the show. We have T-shirts for you. You get that information, T-shirt size, when we get off the air here. But as we close, we thank you again. Thank everybody for tuning in to the Garland RedCup Variety Podcast, where there is always something good in the Red Cup.
Something good in the Red Cup.
And we will see you in 2 weeks.